Video number 2 on how to build your own decentralized Web3 frontend. In this tutorial, we have to work with something that is extremely important, and that is how are we going to load each component per the required sequence. Listen carefully. When we are not running any web frontend framework like NextJS, React.js, we are going to be running everything serverless. As soon as that client loads the page, we are going to be fetching all the information out of IPFS because we're going to be uploading that folder onto IPFS. This is the challenge that we have to make sure that all the components can be loaded successfully. And that is, I need to know that in order for me to attach a button to a function, let's say to connect your Web3 wallet like Metamask, if I build a button that is going to be calling a function that is going to be triggering that Web3 wallet to open in a serverless render sequence, I need to make sure that I have first the function available so then the button can actually attach to it. In HTML, we call the onClick to the button. The onClick is just going to attach to the function that is going to connect the wallet. It's going to trigger that Metamask to open, okay? But here's the thing. In the sequence of events, I need to make sure that first I load the function so then when I load the HTML component that is going to attach that function to the button, that function is available. If I load the button first and then I load the function, it's just going to error out. It's going to say, well, I don't know what this function is. I don't see it. It's not rendered in my client session. The client is going to be loading the page by fetching all the files from the IPFS CID. As soon as we deploy that instance or we drop the folder with all the files, including the index.html onto the IPFS location, I will be obtaining the CID. The CID is going to be the path that is going to tell our clients where are those files. The loading stage in the browser component is going to grab all those files and is going to render that live in real time by the end user. All the stuff that I'm doing in HTML that is going to be talking to functions in JavaScript, I need to make sure that the functions in JavaScript are set first or are loaded first, else we're not going to be able to load the page correctly. Not only that, we also want to make sure that those functions that will refresh the information for that particular application, let's say the application is about DeFi staking, which is what we are literally converting into serverless. I have to make sure that I can provide the end user the values in real time. As users are staking and unstaking, I will be showing the end user those values in real time, and those values will be refreshed. We're just going to be building a set interval. We'll set that set interval 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds, we're going to be contacting the blockchain. We're going to be getting those values out of the smart contract, and we will be displaying those values in HTML. It is a very powerful lesson, and your mind is going to start understanding that there needs to be a sequence of render components in the browser session in which we will render everything. The CDN first to fetch EthersJS or Web3js or any other module that is going to allow us to talk to that Metamask wallet. We probably have to load that first so then we can load the function that is going to actually trigger or invoke the session to open the wallet. And finally, we have to load the HTML component that is going to attach to that function. I love to talk, but it's better to show you live. Let's go ahead and let's make this happen. Okay, so this is where we left off on the last video. Now let's do the following. What I'm going to do first is we are going to be importing from Next.js onto our static HTML site the contract ABIs. So the smart contracts for our DeFi staking pool, the Masterchef smart contract and the ERC20 token smart contract, we have to import those ABIs because we're going to be making those Web3 calls, which means that I have to attach the ABI so then I can call the functions inside the smart contract. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, drop those smart contract ABIs onto the static HTML project, and we will import the EthersJS and Web3js CDN module onto the static HTML site. And you are going to see that we were able to load that once the client renders the page. Okay, so that tells me that we are ready to start building the functions, or at least start migrating the functions from Next.js onto the static HTML site. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So this is the Next.js project. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I am going to Command A. I'm going to select all of it. I'm going to Control C. Okay, and now in my static HTML site, under the JS folder, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new file, and this file is going to be called ERC, the same thing, ERC20 ABI.js. Okay, it's not going to be JSON, it's going to be JS, because what we're going to do, we are going to be assigning a variable to this. So then once the loading happens on the browser, we have a variable that we can attach and make the same calls that we were doing once we were running it on Next.js. Okay, so with that said, let's check this out. So what I'm going to do, first I'm going to declare this to be token ABI, okay? And now I should be able to paste the contract ABI. It's going to be loaded once I render the site, and then I can use this to call my Web3 functions. This is the ERC20 token smart contract ABI, so I'm going to control S. Now what we're going to do the same thing with the Masterchef smart contract ABI. So I'm going to create a new file. Let's call this Masterchef.js, okay? Now what I'm going to do, I am going to import that as well. So let's go to the NextJS project. I'm going to select the Masterchef ABI. I'm going to Control C or Command C if you're using Mac here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to call this Masterchef ABI. Okay. I'm going to paste. And that should be it. Okay, awesome. So I just saved this file as well. So we are now good to proceed and add the CDN imports for EthersJS as well as Web3js into the static HTML file. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead into the index.html. And what I can do, I can go to Google and find what the CDN path is, or find any available CDN so that I can import that. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you. I'm going to say EthersJS CDN. Let's see if under their documentation we can have this import. There you go, we do have it, okay? Awesome, so we do have the browser base, right? And this is what we're looking for, okay? Once we invoke the script on the HTML file, we are going to actually import this. We're going to be importing it this way so that I can call ethers on my functions, okay? And it's literally the same thing as we were doing in NextJS. So if we go back to NextJS, I'm gonna go back, let's go to config. You can see it right here. So what I'm doing right now, so I'm just gonna zoom in. So what I'm doing right now, so we're going to be importing ethers from the ethers module. I am just doing it as the client loads the site. We will call the CDN repo, we will retrieve the ethers module, then we will import it, okay? And then I can use that declaration, okay? It's very straightforward. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back on the index file, and you can see right here, this is what we did the last video. We imported the pool database and the pool HTML. So what I'm going to do now, before this, right, we want to make sure this is the order, this is what is important. We have to make sure that we have all the dependencies loaded previously or before what is going to need those dependencies, okay? So in my case, I am going to, right after main, once we close main, we are going to be pasting that EthersJS CDN path or module. We're going to be importing that module, and you can see here, in order for me to import, do this style import a module, I have to make sure that at the script level, once I declare the script, I gotta make sure that I type this to be a module, okay? Very important. Once we do that, then I can effectively import ethers once we get the file from the CDN repo or the CDN source, okay? Beautiful. Now, the second thing that I have to import is going to be Web3js because I'm going to use Web3 to do the Metamask call or the Metamask integration. I'm going to be using ethers to make my Masterchef smart contract Web3 calls to retrieve the values that we need to retrieve, like let's say the token balance, the token stake, the amount of rewards that we are paying to pay to the user, all that, okay? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but for Web3js, okay? So now what I'm going to do, Web3js CDN, okay? And let's see here. And we can definitely use this one, okay? So you can see here that we have one, copy the whole script tag. This is literally from cdnjs.com, and I can copy the entire script path and paste that on the index.html file, okay? Okay, I'm going to drop that right below that. Okay, awesome. So now you can see that I'm just importing it. Now that I have the two imports that I need in order for me to make my Web3 calls, I want to import the two ABIs that I just created the files for. Okay, so the ABIs that I'm going to be importing are going to be the ERC20 ABI and the Masterchef Contract ABI. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this, you know me, and then I'm going to add that before. So let's go ahead and declare this before because we are definitely going to need the ABIs before we can even make the calls, right? So I have to make sure that I import that beforehand. The order is very important, okay? So now that I did that, now I can call this ERC20 ABI. There you go, it's autocomplete. And now I'm going to do the same thing with Masterchef. All the ABIs, and I'm loading the pool DB and I'm loading the pool HTML. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to open this in the browser and let's take a look and see if we can see two modules loaded, okay? Press F12 and I am going to show you that we definitely have both. You can see here, we have loaded Web3js from the CDN import. And now we have ethers as well. We're golden, okay? What else did we import? The ABIs. So let's go ahead under JS, and you can see right here that we definitely have the two ABIs. We have the ERC20 ABI, and we have the Masterchef ABI. Awesome. So we're good. Now let's go ahead and build the config.js. This is where all the Web3 magic is going to happen. What we're going to do, we're going to build the config.js file, and then we're going to head back onto NextJS under the config, and we're going to be copying and pasting everything that we need to migrate from NextJS onto the static site. Back here, and I'm going to create that new file. We're going to call this config.js, okay? Now let's go under the NextJS instance, and we are going to be copying the whole NextJS config.js file. We'll add it here, but then we have to remove items that we are not going to need because this is a static HTML, okay? With that said, I'm going to head back here. This is the entire path. I'm just going to Command A, and then Command C, and then let's go back. Okay, and now inside the config.js, we have pasted all the information from the NextJS project. Okay. All right, so first things first, we are not definitely going to use any of that because this is Next.js specific. We're definitely going to be using the Masterchef address because this is where I'm going to be populating that with the Masterchef smart contract address. The Web3 provider, this is the VM. This is another Web3 module that we can use to talk to the Metamask wallet. But in this case, I'm just using the Web3js. We can delete that. Other than that, this is definitely needed. This is converting ourselves from Way to Ethers for our DeFi staking platform. And now this is the converter back from ETH to Way, okay? All right, we got the Connect Web3 wallet. And now you can see right here that it's telling us that it's missing that Web3 provider. Let's fix that, okay? Okay, so now I have to make a little bit of adjustments because we are replacing VM with Web3. So it's going to be a slightly different approach. So what I'm going to show you, I have the function already built in to save time. What we are doing, I want to show you what the difference is, right? Because up to here, you can see this is the fix. Basically, this is what we are going to be replacing it with. But I want to show you what the difference is, okay? So the difference is here that now we are going to be invoking Web3 instead of the Web3 provider, which was VM before. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, okay? And now what am I doing with this is I am invoking a window Ethereum call or an event. I have to make sure that I have the MetaMask wallet available in the browser and I am going to be opening that connection. So what happens is the moment I make this call, you are going to see the Web3 wallet opening the MetaMask wallet, okay? And now I have to make sure, I'm going to put a condition. Hey, if you indeed open the wallet and accept to connect to the page, then I'm going to go ahead and continue generating all this. I'm going to continue providing all the variables that we are going to be using across the entire app. Okay. So with that said, if accounts has been filled with data, there's a return on their account, there's value, then I'm going to proceed to provide all this below. Okay. Let me go ahead and I am just going to delete this because this is literally the same thing. Okay, and now you can see here that I don't need to export because this is strictly for Next.js. In my case, in a static HTML site, I don't need to export anything because it's just going to be loaded by the client and it's going to be available. Instead of me having to export and import functions, I can have them available right away. I will be able to find that because the information will be available on the browser. This is not a framework that we have to export and import. We're not running like a backend where I have to do a module export if I'm running Node.js. This is literally rendered by the browser and the browser will have all the variables available as long as you properly imported that in the order that they need to be imported, okay? Beautiful. So I don't need any exports. So what I'm going to modify all the exports. This is just going to be the normal function that we are just going to call regardless of where we are located in the project map, or in this case, in the location on the project, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and do that, okay? And I just exported and converted everything to async function because literally we can access this anywhere in the project. Now that I have this ready to go, what I need to do now is that I have to make sure that the config.js file is loaded, is rendered before every other file that will depend on the functions that I have right here, right now. My pull HTML.js is definitely going to be using those functions, which means that I have to import the config.js first. So then once I load this one, right? Once I load or render the pull HTML is going to look for any functions inside the config. So that must be available before the actual pull HTML file, okay? So I go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do, go back to index.html, and right before the pull DB and pull HTML, I got to make sure that I import that, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. We'll type here config.js. There you go. Awesome. So we have the config.js has been imported onto the project. Okay, next thing. Next thing is that I am going to take the opportunity to change this to provide the Masterchef smart contract. I have one that is already deployed and it already has values and all that, so then we can continue populating all the information, okay? Beautiful. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I just populated that smart contract address. I think we are good so far. So now what I have to do, let's go back to the HTML side. Now that we have this HTML side ready to go, now I have to provide that button to open the pool because now I need to provide the user the capabilities of staking and claiming tokens, okay? Let's go ahead and do the following. I have to import one more DOM element, and this is the model. So in the Next.js project, there is a model that is going to pop up that is going to give the user all the information and the option to stake on stake, etc. Okay, so let's do that. What I'm going to do what we were doing on the previous video. I'm going to go very quick on it so then we can focus on the JS functions. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that so we can see the open pool button. And you remember when we were working with the pool HTML, this is literally appending childs to parent. Okay, now what I'm going to do before I append everything, right, we are going to placed right below grid 8, which is the last section in the front end in the card. Let me show you back. So grid 7 is this one right here. So every card, this is grid 7, okay? Grid 8 is basically this white or blank space right here, this empty space on the card. What we want to do, we want to build a button to open the pool. So it allows me to interact with this particular pool, okay? And because this is part of a loop, we are creating those card objects by running that pool. So how many pools I have in the pool DB file, that is the amount of cards that I'm going to be generating here, okay? Which has to match with the Masterchef smart contract. So in the Masterchef smart contract, if you have 3 pools, that means that you need to have 3 pools in your local pool database file. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and paste the entire module. I'm going to try to explain to you the model in detail, but it's literally what we were doing, no different. We are literally appending child's will, creating the objects, adding the headers, appending the headers, and all that. This is exactly the same approach as we were doing on the last video, okay? So let's go ahead and paste it right here, and bear with me, okay? So let's scroll all the way back to grid 8, okay? So this is grid 8, and this is where we start with the model. So let me go ahead and do this. I'm gonna add a comment here. I'm gonna say model. So this is the start of the model. So now what I'm gonna do in the model, check this out. I am going to create a div, right? And inside the div, I am going to declare a JSX object. Here's the thing. In JSX, I can create objects that are basically string, but once I attach this to the inner HTML DOM element, I will be rendered this as if it was an actual HTML object, okay? I am literally writing the syntax, but it's a string. It's not something that is going to be rendered once it loads this function, right? Because this is JavaScript, this is not HTML. So what I'm doing is I'm passing that string value in the inner HTML of this div element, okay? So the model is literally going to have this object, which is going to be rendered by the DOM element, okay, or the DOM. So with that said, this button right here, right, it has class primary, okay, it has onClick show model. Okay, now that we are going to import this as an HTML object, I gotta make sure that before I render that HTML object, this show model function is available. Else it's not gonna work, it's going to error out because that is missing. The browser cannot find that function, so it cannot append that onClick to this button, okay, or to this function. Where is that show model function? So let's go back to the config.js, and you should see it right here, okay? So what we are doing is we are going to be importing that show model before the pool HTML. That's why I set config.js before pool HTML in the script. When we were invoking the script, we were invoking it because of that. Now, what is this? Okay, so what is this? This is the actual element ID in the model. So once we generate this model or HTML renders and create the model, we are going to be having separate models, okay? Why? Because we have different pools. So I want to make sure that once I open the pool model for each pool, I am invoking the right model. We want to make sure that we are rendering the model or we are opening the model for that particular pool. And the way that we do it is we declare the ID, right, of that pool model, and we append the I. What's the I? The I is the number that is incrementing from the actual loop, okay? And this is the loop that is in the NextJS project. This is no different, okay? This is exactly the same thing. So what I'm doing is I am preparing this number, right? I'm adding that number, and every time that I go over that loop, I run that loop, it's going to create one new model. Model 0, because that's the first value. Model 0 will be for pool 1. Model 1 is going to be for pool 2, and such. That's how we end up with different models, okay? It's going to make a lot of sense once you see it live, okay? So let's go back. So now you see that the show model is there. That button, ladies and gentlemen, is the button that is going to allow users to open the model for the pool. Now, we're looking right now at all the details that the model is going to have. Literally the same approach as we were doing when we were building this on video number 1. I am making the model body, and I am adding the columns. I am doing everything, but instead of me doing HTML, I'm creating DOM elements, okay? And then I'm adding the input. Again, every time that I'm going to be getting an object that I gotta make sure that if users are inputting data, I reference that to the right model. I gotta make sure that everything has an identifier, okay? So model 0, this will be ID amount, AMT, plus the I, which is the first one's gonna be 0, the second one's gonna be 1. So I know that I'm making the right calls, okay? The right calls to the right destinations or retrieving the data for the right destination on a particular Web3 call, okay? This is literally HTML using map, okay? Literally the same thing. As we were doing in HTML, we have maps, and then we can generate multiple cards dynamically based on the amount of keys inside the map. Then it's literally the same thing, okay? This is me separating, right? Pool ID, this, and pool address, token address. I'm going to explain to you, and this is, by the way, this is on the NextJS project. You're not going to see this. Why? This is a string value that will be passed to the Masterchef smart contract address any time that I need to interact with the smart contract. Why? Because the smart contract is probably going to be asking me for 2 values, so then I can make the call. Check this out. I'm going to continue. I'm going to explain to you once we get that, all right? You can see right here, I'm going to show you, pool IDs. Okay, so pool IDs is the declaration. What is inside here is going to be attached to the stake tokens function. Let me show you what this looks like once it's rendered, once it's converted into string. I'm gonna make a comment, I'm gonna show you. Let's assume that I is 0, okay? Let's assume this is the first iteration in the loop. So this will be 0, right? Now the next item, because what we're doing right here, we're basically separating it. Now the next item is going to be a comma. So let's do a comma. And next item is going to be the token smart contract address. Okay, so in this case, let's assume that this pool 0 has a token smart contract address of, I don't know, 0x, whatever is the case, okay? So what we are doing right now, we are building that string object by running over the information, and that string object is going to be passed here as the argument, okay? So I'm going to be passing that, and what happens is this button is going to be generated using DOM, and automatically it's going to be providing that value inside here, okay? So what we need to do is that once I click stake tokens, I am going to be calling the smart contract with the right pool that I want to stake, okay? So let's say I want to stake on pool 0, and I gotta be providing this token smart contract address because probably in the stake tokens function, that is a requirement for the Masterchef smart contract to determine to which pool am I going to be staking. What better way to see it is that I'm going to show you in the config.js, okay? So stake tokens, we're gonna go back into the config.js. We go here into the stake tokens, and what do we see? We see we're expecting the first value and the second value, okay? Check what's gonna happen. Now, what we're doing is now we are grabbing the element by ID, which by the way, AMT plus I is going to be the input, where the user is going to type the amount of tokens that they want to stake or unstake. So once I obtain that amount, then I'm going to be passing that amount to the actual action, which is going to then invoke the smart contract and do the stake and unstake, okay? If I say action, then this is the same function that we place on the NextJS project, okay? So I'm gonna say I, then the amount, which is obtained from the input by the user. This is the value that is in the HTML DOM, and then the token address and stake. So if we go into the actual function, right? Let's go back down. You can see it right here. It's expecting all those values, right? And now we are converting way, amount to way. We are getting now the Web3 connection from the wallet, okay? We are now grabbing this. Now it says the following: if the action is on stake, so in the action, this has to be predetermined, okay? How do we do that? Once we press the stake tokens button, we are going to be passing stake as the action, okay? So you can see it right here. This is the position, it's the last element in the argument, or like it's the last value in the argument. If we go back down in the action, the argument is like literally right here. This is the last one. So if that action matches on stake, then do this, okay? Else, if the action matches stake, then do this. And now you can see here that token contract is now passing the token address, which is something that we already obtained. Let me show you back. We already obtained from the pool array. So every time the array is going to generate, you're going to see it now. Every time that the array renders a loop, it's going to be filling that information with those values. And I can use those values to pass that to the object. It's a little bit tricky at the beginning, I'm gonna admit. It's not as simple as doing the Next.js function that is going to be easier for you to reference the ID or the key element on the map. This is slightly different. However, at the end, it's literally another way to do a map, okay? Awesome. Now, okay, once we do that, then we are going to effectively append that child, which is the button stake, okay? Awesome. And then I have the other one that is another button that is just going to do on stake, which is literally the same thing, okay? Finally, we have a third button, which is the auto compound button, but that is only applicable if the pool has auto compound, okay? And again, I went through that on other videos, DeFi staking platform. This literally has nothing to do with that, but you are going to definitely see it there. And you can see how I was able to append every object to build the model using DOM manipulation, which is completely different, okay? Awesome. And now I'm just literally appending all the information. You can see it right here, your stakings, this is the title, and you can see that once we render the model, okay? Let's go back down. Now here's the thing, okay? So we know that the card grid 8, so let's find out. Under grid 8, we are appending the model button. This button is going to show in the front page in the pool card, okay? Which means now I can effectively append the model to the parent of all parents, the pool element, okay? So if we scroll all the way down, let me scroll all the way down, we are going to now see right here that we have appended everything. I took the liberty to append all the objects. Now we are going to be appending model to pools, okay? So I'm gonna go right here, I'm gonna Command C, I'm gonna copy and paste, and now we are going to be appending model, okay? That's how I'm going to be adding everything so that HTML can render it based on each card, okay? Beautiful. So I'm gonna go ahead and Control S, right? I'm I'm going to save it. Now that I have that, I probably want to run with an error, and I will do it on purpose, okay? So the error is going to be the following. I'm going to show you why. Because right here, pool array is something that I am not providing. So HTML doesn't know where that pool array comes from. That pool array, ladies and gentlemen, comes from this function, which is the function to get the pool details. This function, once it's called, is going to obtain all the information from the Masterchef smart contract, and we should be able to see the values. But the values are not going to be displayed in HTML, okay? I want to make sure we are going to do that now, okay? So what that said, what I'm going to do, I am going to be calling this function from the pool HTML, which means I need to have that ready to go, already render, else this is going to error out, okay? All right, let me go back. Okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to show you. I'm going to do let pool array. Let's declare this. And now I'm going to say await get pool details. Okay, that's the function in the config.js file. Control S, save it. And now let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oh, we see something. That is cool. Okay, so I'm going to refresh to make sure that we see it. We do see it. Okay, so I'm going to go and press function F12. Let's go to console, nothing. Everything looks good. And now we can definitely see the config.js. We can see all the information that we were able to render. This is great. Now let's test if we can open the model. So let's click open pool. We cannot. Let's press F12 and see what we're missing, okay? We are missing a bootstrap. Interesting. I'm pretty sure that I loaded that, but let's take a look at that. I did, but oh, you know what? I'm probably missing the bootstrap JS, okay? So I loaded the bootstrap style page, but I haven't loaded the bootstrap JS, which is another module, okay? Not a problem. It's a CDN repo. We can go ahead and do it right now, okay? And this one right here, you can see it right here, the bootstrap right here. This one will definitely work. Let me go ahead and zoom in. You can see it right here, the bundle JS. So I loaded the style sheet, but I haven't loaded the actual complete module, okay? So let me go ahead and add that. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this. And let's go ahead and load that right below, before the ABIs, okay? So I'm just gonna add this here, Control S. I save that, and let's see back, okay? So let me refresh, and let's see now. Beautiful. Okay, awesome. We are definitely getting there. Awesome. So you can see here the model, it's basically the same as we had in NextJS. There's no difference. Now what I have to do, what you can see here, there's no information being pulled out, okay? So what I'm going to do, I probably have my Metamask wallet still connected. So I'm going to disconnect the wallet to make sure that we can see at least it's definitely connected. So I'm going to disconnect the account. And let's go ahead and refresh the browser, okay? So I'm going to refresh the browser and we should see the Metamask opening. Awesome, the Metamask is opening. And now you don't see anything being rendered because I need to have the Metamask available so then I can render everything. So that's a good sign. So I'm going to connect my wallet, boom, and now we should see this rendering, boom, beautiful, okay? Awesome. Now, what we need to do, we have to confirm that we are getting the information from the Masterchef smart contract, okay? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to say the following. I am going to head over the config details, get pool details. No, as a matter of fact, we're going to go to the pool HTML. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to console log. I'm going to say pool array, okay? Control S, we're going to save it. And let's go back. Control S, and now we should have a console log with the information from the Masterchef smart contract. Let's see. Awesome. And by the way, I'm running 5 server. That's like a HTML server that we can use just to render it quicker. But you can do this without the server. Literally, that's the whole purpose. Like, just double click the index HTML and you're done. But I'm doing it this way because I am going to make changes to the HTML file. And if you're writing and you're developing, it's better to run it with some instance that will auto refresh every time that you make changes to the HTML file. Okay, just food for thought. Okay, so I'm gonna expand a little bit more. I'm gonna show you this. Okay, and we're almost done with this video. And sure enough, we got the information. Awesome. So you can see here, I got 2 pools. So I got pool 0 and I got pool 1. So now the last thing that we're gonna do in this video, and we are done with this particular section, is that we are going to display those values in both the card. Okay, so on this card, you can see that everything is in 0. And we are going to be displaying also the information that we need to display inside the model. So if I go over the model, we don't see anything. Everything is in 0s. Okay, so let's fix that and we'll call it a day. Okay, so now we know that we have those values. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I am going to fix this particular section right here. And remember, this is a loop, so I just need to fix it on 4 sections right here and we should be good. Okay, so let's go back to the pool HTML. I'm going to remove this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave it because I need to know what the values are. So let's do the first one. So the first one that you can see, I just put a placeholder 00, percentage. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace that with the actual value. Okay, so how do we find that? Remember, this is what we were logging into the console, pool array. So now I'm going to say the following. Here it goes. I am hovering over pool array, and now we can see that the first thing that I have to call is the APY. So what I'm going to do, I am going to attach the array index, which is going to be the loop ID. So let's go back down. Let me show you right now. I'm going to type now pool array okay? And now we are going to say I, because that's the value in the loop, okay? So every time that we run this loop, for every single pool that we have, this will be the value I, and then we're gonna say dot APY. That is the value that we want to display. Okay, we're gonna control S, and let's go ahead and take a look and see if we got something. Beautiful, awesome, okay? And we effectively deleted the percentage symbol, so let me go ahead and add that back. So I'm gonna add this plus, I'm gonna say in string, I'm gonna say percentage, I'm gonna save it, and let's look now. Beautiful, awesome. Okay, so we're done with the first one. You know what I need to do on the other one, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. Now the first one, now that go to the stakings, so you can see my stakings. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove this, I'm gonna say pull array, and I'm gonna say once again, the I, that's the position, and now I'm gonna get my stakings. So this will be user stake, okay? So user stake, I'm gonna control S, let's go back. Beautiful, my stakings are there. Let's go ahead and do pending rewards. Let's go back. Pending, here we go. So pending right now, this is the value, and now I'm gonna say here, and I'm gonna say once again, pull array, I'm gonna do the bracket I, and now reward. This will be the reward, okay? I'm gonna say reward, I'm gonna save it, and let's see how that goes. Beautiful, quite an amount of tokens that I have pending right there. And finally, this total stake in pool. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Scroll down, total stake in pool, return 0 right here. We'll replace that value. Let's say pull array, and we are going to say I, and then I gotta find that value, which is total stake. Here we go, okay? Control S, and let's look. Oh, beautiful, awesome. Okay, so we're done in the front page. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open the pool, and we are going to fix this as well, okay? Let's go back. Now we're gonna go all the way down to the model, and let's find those values. So I'm gonna go here in let me remove this. This is no longer needed. Okay, so we got the pool stake, auto compound, the footer. I think it's gonna be in the footer. Here he goes, here's on the footer. So here it's gonna be the staking. So it's gonna be the same value as my stakings. So I'm gonna say pool array once again, I dot, and I'm gonna say user staked. Perfect. Let's go ahead and take the opportunity to fix all of them. Reward is gonna be the same, pool array, brackets I, then reward, and then let's do the final, which is in my wallet. So in my wallet, it's the amount of tokens that I still have available on my wallet, not necessarily inside the pool. Those are the tokens that I have available that I can use to stake onto the pool, that I can stake them if I want to, because they're available on my wallet. Okay, so that's going to be a different value, but it's still in the array. So I'm going to say I, and I'm going to say user balance. It's going to be user balance, okay? User balance, and that's it. That's all we need to modify right here. I'm going to control S. Let's go back, and let's go into the pool. There we go, awesome. And we are missing the multiplier, so let's add the multiplier because that's another value. So let's go back and reward. Let's find where that multiplier value is. Okay, multiplier is right here. So this will be pool array, I, and multiplier, okay? Awesome, I'm gonna control S, and let's see. Boom, beautiful. And I removed the X, so let me add the X back. So this one is gonna be before, so that means I gotta do this string X plus, and let me, no, that's it, okay, control S, let's go back. Beautiful, awesome. Let's do the following, okay? You can see here that I have different values because why? Because I am passing each loop that I'm doing, I am generating a brand new model with every single index. Same thing as I was doing with a pool map. It's the same thing, no difference, okay? On the last video, what we need to do, we are going to be staking, and we will bring this application live in IPFS to have a completely decentralized DeFi staking app, okay? All right, there you go. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoy it. And again, practice makes perfection. I can show you this, how I do it, but it's not until you do it yourselves that you are definitely going to grasp the concept. So please practice. Bye.